Hi, everybody. Dan Winter here again, and I'm here with Dahlia, who is amazing. And Dahlia is having a lot of stresses because this is pretty intense for her. It's
Yeah.
she's having memories, and she realizes, as she said, the people in power now basically are the ones who murdered Tut and all these memories, and plus she's in Egypt, and it's a bit of a stressful place sometimes. So let's send a little love toward Dahlia here.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely needed. So thank you.
Yeah. So this is our conversation number 4, and the audience has been amazing. And thank you for being so supportive and interested. And it's obvious why, because if we're right that Thoth was the bloodline of the Grail and the bloodline of the line of David and the bloodline of Jesus and the bloodline of the kings of Egypt and the bloodline, that's Thoth again and again everywhere you look. It's like all done with mirrors. And here she's getting phone calls daily, which are almost overwhelming from Thoth and his family.
Yeah, it is overwhelming. And maybe I was gonna save this to last, but maybe because it's happening right now. I have like crazy construction happening in the apartment I'm staying in. And it's part of the pattern like of the hostile energies in Egypt. Like last time I visited was 2 years ago and I almost died. And
Yeah.
I had hospital and it was really terrible.
Yeah.
So these because the people that are in power now are basically the descendants, the lineage of that I and Horemheb, the military general, and the Black priesthood, which are the politicians. So the marriage of the politicians and the Black priests and the military that goes. These are the people that murdered Tut.
Yeah, so
These
it's like the karma is fully around you in Egypt.
clear on me. Yeah, and I received the hostility. I received the hostility as soon as I landed in Cairo. That's why I could not land in Cairo. And here in Sinai, it's more mild because it's closer to Thebes. It's closer to the south, the Upper Egypt, where actually Tut was residing and
Yes.
Akhenaten. And yeah, so it's more regenerative in some sense, but still, like chaos is still around me, but it's not lethal, but it's highly stressful. And this is why I have eczema because I have a lot of stress and anxiety. So
Yeah, but your
I'm
smile is
quite.
still your smile is still very special. I mean, you're doing okay, actually. I wouldn't. It reminds me of when Vincent Bridges said he landed in Cairo and went to do these rituals, and he like was attacked, he said, by all this. And he said he was the Sufis who saved him. It was a very interesting story of Vincent. With But anyway, so for today's conversation, I have subtitles again because I think they're hilarious. I mean, useful. So the theme of today has to do with the fact when Dahlia was kind of saving that schoolyard in Berlin, Waldorf School near the Berlin Wall, and saw that the parasitic energy coming from all the 3G towers right around the schoolyard,
And Alexanderplatz, the huge tower actually was targeted towards the Waldorf school. Like
yeah,
you could see
it was
right
like
there.
aimed at. It's like somebody was trying to take the soul of the kids. That was Dahlia's perception, and I'm sure she's right. And Dahlia saw inside the plague of astral parasitic plasma coming from the towers. She saw what they looked like, and then they did an interview, and she figured out who they were, and why they were there. I mean, this is a story, and it has to do obviously with astral hygiene and understanding what the parasite was for. And of course, I have to do our hilarious subtitles for today, which I have a list of hilarious subtitles for today. So, uh, even parasites need love. The other one is if the parasite is a messenger. Second subtitle is don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah,
And
but I want to also make a differentiation here, Dan, because we're talking about two different things. There are the parasites that are earthbound
yeah.
entities,
Mhm.
and there is the algorithm that is a predatory in nature, um, but it's a higher dimension. So there is the
Hmm.
yeah, and I kind of wanted to talk about the big picture view of
Exactly.
things.
Yes.
Um, yeah, because I feel like the earthbound entities, we can talk about that in detail in terms of like astral hygiene, but I don't want to interrupt your flow
No, I'm just joking around with subtitles. You have the
Okay.
message. I'm doing the jokes. You have the message. I know
Okay, yeah.
my function here is to keep this light so that Dahlia doesn't fall off the map with all the intensity. I'm
Yeah.
just I'm just the joker and no the third since Dahlia said it looked like a spider, the third subtitle is along came the spider and sat down beside her. That was no.
That's funny.
And the fourth subtitle comes from my brother, who is a chief programmer at the family business, and it's not a bug, it's a feature.
Mhm. Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah,
But
totally.
but it actually, so I'm not even going to do a slideshow, but there is a slide, and it was from Anton Béchamp, who instead of calling them, bacteria and viruses, he called it bioplasma. He called it microzymes. And then there was a parallel to Gaston Naisson's Galileo with a microscope, who called it the somatid. And if you look at the slide, somatid cycles, the somatid morphs every three stages of its life cycle. There's all these morphs appearances, but it's basically living plasma. And all of these guys are saying, that unlike Pasteur, who said, oh, yeah, you need to shoot the parasite, they're saying, no, 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 there's a profound message here and where it came from and where it's going.
Mhm.
And and then on a deeper level, when we did all those interviews with Johann Fritz, who was probably the only human being who met the Orion Queen of the Draco, Red Queen, personally. And no one else has actually survived to tell the story. And YouTube removed every interview we did with Johann Fritz about that. But there's still 2 or 3 on our channel. Johann Fritz is amazing, SSP experiencer. Anyway, so he's telling us, where did the black goo come from? Speaking of parasites. And he's saying basically it was a as Dahlia said, it was a program that went awry kind of thing. And one of its designs was to basically remove all life from any planet it lands on.
Mm.
And you see in Doctor Who, these black cubes arrive, and there's billions of them, and they can dissolve anything. And we know that the center of the black obviously is a carbon nano phase conjugator, which is obviously implosive and can communicate galaxy wide with entrained longitudinal, if you understand the physics. So there's a whole history of using parasites as vectors and what that means and what that tells us. And then the end, and this is going to be the end of my humorous introduction. And then the show, this is all yours, Dahlia. The end of my humorous introduction comes from um, physicsofsoul.com is where we are putting these videos with Dahlia because it has so much to do with the physics of soul. And you will recall the physics of soul is basically the ability to implode enough charge in your aura via bliss and sacred space that your aura becomes big enough and dense enough and compressed enough to implode
Mhm.
and therefore create this coherent field, which actually is the coherence field we call coherent longitudinal interferometry. The Ba from the Ka would be the Egyptian term, that you make this coherent stuff that embeds you in the longitudinal array, and we can prove that longitudinal EMF coherence, Ba from the Ka, rainbow light body, Kesjan body, is actually the stuff electrically by frequency signature. We can identify that's what you must have to lucid dream and where you go when you take memory through death, called embedding in the array, that whole story. So the context of this conversation is, oh, why is it that the souls of our kids are just in the crosshairs of these parasites? Why? And so now Dahlia is going to answer all these questions.
Yes, this last bit is highly resonating with Thoth, and if you see me move in a funny manner, it's Kundalini moving through me, and he is pulsating through me. So what you just said is very much aligned and resonating with this frequency of what we're really trying to transmit, And thank you for the humorous introduction. It really creates this
We keep it light. We keep it light.
magic show.
Yes, it's a light and magic show. Exactly.
Light and magic show, and it's all about light and illusion and discerning truth from illusion, because there is always truth hidden within the smoke and the illusion, and there's also falseness in everything, right? There's always truth and falseness, and so I just want to clarify then when we say parasites need love, I'm not condoning at all parasitic existence at all, like especially when it comes to personal lives of people. Like if you have an entity attachment, or you know, wherever it comes from, and this must go, this must be dispelled, and the different shamanic practices, they know how to do this. And but then also the Catholic Church, they have their exorcists. And from my point of view, like most people need an exorcism, unfortunately. But they don't even know, and they won't even acknowledge it. So because these entities, when they leech on somebody, they are very subtle and tricky to even, they form a veil on the eyes, and I have seen that. I've seen what it looks like. It forms a veil on the eyes that prevents them from seeing things clearly. And also the smoke that covers the eyes, it also covers the soul, and it's as if the soul is covered in goo, and it's hard to dispel. But of course, the light of the soul to shine through is by universal love, divine love, emanating and illuminating, and not fear, because fear, they thrive on fear energy in the voidal
Yeah.
space. But when fear is paired with shame, this is when the eyes are closed and they cannot see the truth of what their behavior. So they act unconsciously because they have entities animating them without their knowing.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so they lose themselves in a rage fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
so you see it all the time.
And to say rage, when Thoth confirmed that 2/3 of the humans on this planet already are apparently already virtually soulless, and we see 2/3 of the kids on this planet go to bed nightly with Bluetooth in their ears, which cuts off soul instantly, immediately, and powerfully, that square wave, I felt a bit of rage, actually.
Yeah, very righteous and necessary rage.
Yeah.
But yeah, anytime you see a drunk person just get angry and start to get violent, these are entities like animating that person. But sometimes it's covert, and especially with women, it's not outright anger expression, but it could be subtle manipulation also.
Yeah.
So it has many ways of showing itself. So I'm not condoning that existence and that leeching existence, and I'm actually like here to fight it. Like and we all should be light warriors
Mhm.
and expel these parasitic entities from our lives, from our children's lives, from our backyards, playgrounds, graveyards, and everywhere must be conducive of harmonic regenerative growth and fractality, and not dense parasitic, you know
Yeah. And part of the
complicated fear energies. Yeah.
And part of the physics here is that where you have implosion, for example, sacred space or bliss or a stone circle or a forest or a blissful altar, implosion self-sorts, only the shareable wave survives the burn at the center. So where there is implosion, the parasite can't make it through because only the shareable wave can propagate. And the more dense the implosion, the more intense the sorting factor, which is obviously why if you have access to nature and sacred space, it makes it a whole lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and back to nature, everyone, adults and children, like off of the iPads and back to nature. So
Yeah, it's the old story. Yeah.
it's the old story, exactly. So I wanted also to mention something beautiful that I received. It was a very loving message that from family, from my galactic family,
Both.
Thoth and others as well,
Horus.
yeah. The and also feminine energies. I maybe I haven't talked enough about the feminine energies or presences that I work with, but they were all very appreciative of the work that you and I are doing, and the spreading of the information, is specifically the truth about the death of Thoth and sorry, Tutankhamun, um, who was a living avatar, really, not so different from um,
Jesus. may I say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in fact, yeah, he was, yeah. And so he was, because of his disabilities and the whole, we talked about that, the whole conspiracy around him and all these forces, and he was murdered before he could fulfill his role, really, as a living avatar of those higher beings, the higher dimensional beings.
Mhm.
So they wanted to share gratitude and love because they're saying that sharing the truth about that is already creating ripples in the field, in the collective.
I can feel it, man. My hair's standing up right now, actually. Yeah, we share the truth about have we welcomed our avatars, our messiahs? No, actually, unfortunately. Which is why we call the last episode the reluctant messiah, and also why Dalia is a little reluctant at this point.
Yeah. And that's where the anxiety comes from, obviously. It's a reaction. And so, yeah, and this affects everybody. This affects the collective. And I don't want people to think about the Egyptian story or the Egyptian lineage as some kind of a special interest. This affects everyone. You're looking at the core of
Yeah.
humanity. You're looking at the trauma, his physical disability that was also by malevolent intent, as I believe. It was not simply just like a deformity that he was born with. There was malevolent intent.
Mhm.
Um, and
And even Nefertiti was not the hero. I mean, there's so many pieces of that story. It's
she was an actual evil witch.
yeah.
And
Sorry.
I'm sorry to say,
Sorry, history, but you got it wrong, history. Oops. Yeah.
yeah, she was what you would call narcissistic
Mhm.
type and rageful and evil intent. She looks very beautiful,
Yeah.
and that was not her personality.
Yeah. And if you guys could grow up and get your ancestor memory together, you'd remember too. Hello.
You would exactly, and you would know the truth on a subtle level.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to say is all of that malintent and malevolence, um, it's a lineage of dark magic that extends to this very day. What people call the cabal and the dark elites. This is the lineage of the priesthood, the dark priesthoods, or the priesthood that learned magic, let's say, or learned the arts of manipulating energy, manipulating not in a bad way, but essentially you learn how to work with energy. And Thoth has been teaching the principles for ages for the humans, and why he feels betrayed is because these people went and took the knowledge that he taught them and did not give credit, did not give thanks, and used it for malintent and evil purposes that has to do with control of other people, that has to do with enslaving and having power over and dominating people with the knowledge, using it for dark purposes and evil purposes, really. When I say dark, I mean darkness is sacred, but it's just a figure of speech, really. I'm saying dark because it's not for the light in that context. It's not for the regenerative shareable waves.
Yeah.
They use it for very selfish
Yeah.
power gathering.
We could give a practical example when with Thule, which is the other name for Atlantis, named for Thoth, he delivered what's called the fire crystal, PHIRE, firecrystal.com technology, which is charge collapse in a crystal, where you can cause earthquakes and you can control people actually with that kind of implosive field. And instead of using it for zero-point energy and interstellar communication and stargates, unfortunately, it was used for control, and thousands of people were enslaved. So that's an example of here's Thoth delivering a gorgeous technology. Oh, we all want free energy. Oh, free energy isn't available because there's some bad guys. Well, if we understood this physics of free energy, that makes it free. Until then, we're still, worshiping the Coke bottle for the gods must be crazy.
I want to say something about that thing about controlling people. I'm not sure about the specific technologies that you just mentioned, but I want to clarify that there is the act of being in unison that happens when you are on a larger array, on a larger aura. It's not like a hive mind mentality, but it's almost like synchronization, which is different from controlling people. So I would imagine this technology was not meant to control people, but it was meant to achieve a large enough field that people can be synchronized.
Yes.
And with their synchronistic actions, like, you know, like ballet dancers, they can create more in a synergistic way.
Yeah,
And
they
this
can create
happens
a
automatically.
collective bliss mind, the plasma cocoon. The swarm of the bees is literally when they have bliss. Then they can navigate collectively in the lucid dream and enter the stars.
Yeah, absolutely. And can actually, if we're talking levitate things, and if we're talking
Yes.
just doing physical things in a more organized way also. So you
Yeah.
can achieve more in the physical dimension as well.
And so then there's a legal limit to the snow in Camelot. I mean, the tornadoes are steered. Hello, literally,
Yeah,
electrically.
yeah. But I think that the worst part of the black magic is because, yeah, they can use it for then mind control and cursing people, hexing people, causing disease for people and scaring them off. And it's really
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah, but I think what you wanted to do today was talk about how you saw that parasite. Was it the spiders? Is that where we go next with this,
Yeah,
or
we can go there next. Yeah.
is that
Um, this
appropriate?
is the continuation of, yeah, of our last message when I spoke about the cataclysm. When I spoke about the cataclysm and that it's escalating, and that he gave me the number 23 as a very important number in this equation. And of course, just instantly I tried to translate it into years because I asked about the when, and he gave me a number 23. And so he said it's in cycles and it either escalates or de-escalates. For sure will be done by 200 in 230 years, but could be done sooner. Definitely not later, but could be done sooner if things escalate in the wrong direction.
And we mentioned the physics that when too many people succumb to their parasites, they become collectively less centripetal. And that is the end of planets. That's the end of the gravity field. That's effectively why Atlantis sank, actually. When too many people are deprived of the freedom of their own bliss, the whole collective culture is less centripetal. And that literally electrically destabilizes gravity, among other things. And we've talked about that before, but so
Yeah.
important, that collective.
I also want to mention that it appeared just before our conversation, a reminder that the tilt of the Earth is 23 degrees, 23.5 degrees. There is something about that that I have received messages about as well, in terms of my own physical body as the body of the Earth. This is also kind of I think, an important factor of this, and part of the healing that I'm here to do, because I do have a tilt in my right leg that has to do with the past life of Tut. Let's just say the trauma of Tut caused a tilt of some sort. I'm not saying that it caused the tilt in the earth, but it caused a deviation of some sort.
Yeah.
And by righting the wrongs, by healing traumas, we correct the deviation. And so in my physical healing journey, I am readjusting with the Kundalini and with the Therify as a catalyst for the Kundalini experience that allowed me to have a Kundalini rising. It's as if you're being worked by a shaman or a chiropractor shaman that is correcting the tilt in my body on specifically my right leg, which was the leg that, I mean, he always used the stick. And I know this from my memory, like, that I was very dependent and he was very dependent on his stick.
Yeah.
He couldn't
There's
walk
many,
back.
many sticks in his tomb, and which leg was infected and bad is well known. You can check that, and so it's became archetypal actually.
Yeah, it is archetypal, and it's connected, like we say, to the disabilities in the human genome, in the collective.
You know,
So if you were to go with the fragment of memory in every person that has that disability or a similar disability, and they would do their healing journey around that and go back to their memory, they would be a fragment of the life of Tot. And so, and anytime I would remember my past life memories, I would get the lazy leg, my left leg. I wouldn't be able to lift it off the ground as I'm walking, and I could be somewhere in public, it was a bit embarrassing, it happened to me a few times when I was still processing the memories. And I lose my ability to, and I have, of course, friends who have seen that. So, and it's like I'm dragging my left leg, but then I need my stick on the right, and I cannot, you know, especially if I meet someone that I've known from this past life as Tut, which I have met, the person that I was married to in this life of Tut. And so anytime I meet this person, I begin to channel the past life memories, and then I need my stick again, and I can't walk properly. So it's really like living two many lives in one.
Should we guess that was a complicated relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. It was very
Oh my God.
complicated. Absolutely. And so
Yeah.
the reason that I was mentioning that is on my healing journey. Thankfully, I processed this and I don't have the same symptoms, but I'm still working with my own tilt in my right leg. And so it's progressing, and I think it has something to do with the with the tilt of the earth and the angle of the tilt of the earth. And my right leg that's connected. So in some way, what I want to share is your physical body can have a map of the earth, and also in your physical healing, you are also healing the body of the earth with how much you agree to take or volunteer to take on in that regards. So personal healing is connected to collective healing and to the healing of the planet.
Absolutely. And there's something big here since Cruttenden, loststar.com absolutely proved that precession 26,000 years is crap. Precession's around 24,000, and it ain't the Earth's tilt that makes it. It's the sun whose tilt is precessing around. So hello, Tutankhamun is the sun god, as Lost Tutankhamun prophecy said. And it's actually a bigger picture. It's the embedding in the sun that enabled precession to happen, and that our embedding in that cycle, which is a larger galactic body. I mean, that's a picture in a picture. But the fact that we completely misunderstood precession all this time, completely, read Cruttenden, loststar.com. I mean, science has been completely out the window on the physics of precession. It's the sun's axis that's doing the whole shtick. So anyway, this is the bigger body of the sun god, which, Tut is the symbol for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In terms of Amun Ra and
Exactly, sun god.
Amen, that's the Amun Ra.
Every ancient religion is a sun god religion. No historian will deny that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they, speaking of Ra, they showed me, how the sun symbol with the circle with the dot inside, which we take as the sun symbol. They showed me that it's actually DNA, it's human DNA, it's the cellular structure. It's a one cell with the nucleus inside. And they showed it to me that this is the human genetic pool, the red bloodline.
Mhm.
That's a symbol for. So I'm not saying it's not a symbol for the sun, but when you work in levels, you work on the plasma of the sun
Mhm.
and its center, but you also work like like the human heart. It's always macrocosm and
Yeah,
microcosm. And you also work with the DNA, with the cell. So
yeah.
you have a sun in every cell of your body that could
And
be enlightened, and that's the healing process, right? You could
beautiful.
bring fractality to the cellular memory, and this is the process that I'm undergoing as well with the Kundalini rising. It's
Powerful.
bringing more light to the
Yeah.
cells that have been dormant and have been, um, let's just say, trapped light.
And
And
when all the clairvoyants looked at the heart of the sun and called it Anu, 7 spin out, 5 spins inside, and then they looked at the heart of the human, and then they looked at the heart of hydrogen, they saw the same thing every time, 7 spins, which is basically charge collapse. So suddenly the name sun god means the charge collapse that around which you embed and rotate. So it's actually a pure principle of the physics. The name and the shape of the service are one. So sun god means pure principle, actually.
yeah, absolutely. Not just the sun, but it's
No.
the pure,
Yeah,
exactly.
of embedding
Yeah.
charge collapse. The Anu is a 7 spins, 5 spins. It's a charge collapse when you nest embed platonics, which is the only way to make an atomic table, or hydrogen actually, which is the only way to map the solar system's planetary orbitals, as Kepler well knew, it's a Platonic nest because 7 spins, 5 spins is about charge collapse, which initiates golden ratio. It's all physics. But I thought you wanted to get to the purpose of this parasite. Is
Okay, so yeah, I don't want to speak necessarily about the parasites, but I want to speak about the algorithm, the AI algorithm, and its role
yes.
in the upcoming cataclysm.
Yeah, which is why I got excited, because at physicsofsoul.com, we said that only when you know the physics of what a soul is, can you use AI and not be absorbed by it. That's the only moment you can make an intelligent decision about how to use AI, after you learn what is the physics of soul. Until then, it results in soullessness, which is our problem.
It's absolutely correct. So we ended on that note that there is a cataclysm happening, and it's got climate change all over it, and it will appear as environmental disasters that are already happening, right? All over the world, it's already happening. And so this is shown to me by the galactic, my soul, my galactic being, who is a falcon, who is Horus. And so what he showed me is that there was the 2/3 that are gone. When he showed me the entire planet of the Earth, and he showed me the 2/3 already gone, what was that visual representation? It was like a blackness, a black, what you can call a black goo substance overtaking the 2/3 of the Earth. And then in the middle there was still some light. There was still some light, some blue. You could still see the Earth, but the rest was blackened. It was blackened goo. And I know a lot of people speak about goo and the nature of goo, and I don't know what the actual goo is, but this was the representation that he
Black goo is the carbon. Carbon is a phase conjugator, the nano, and it can appear self-aware and self-organized. It's a profound conjugator at the atomic level, and you can do interstellar communication for good or evil with that kind of nano. So, and that's why we must understand it. Otherwise,
yeah, so that's that's good, because it's a neutral definition. Like you said, it can be used for good or evil. So this is where we're going with this. So he showed me what is causing this, and he showed me a big spider entity, which is the Spider Woman. And it's not the first time that I've dealt or have seen the spider entity, the spider being. I know that it's starting to sound a bit like sci-fi now, but I just want to clarify something. Unless you're a seer or a shaman in some sense, you won't be able to see those entities. You must have shamanic ability to understand what I'm talking about, because otherwise it sounds like some cartoon or some sort of a child.
And remember, we've taught the physics of clairvoyance, prehension of coherent longitudinal interferometry. We know the brain power spectra that creates clairvoyance. We know exactly what that is, and that is the life cycle of the plasma. So seeing that plasma as the intelligence behind, and literally seeing the plasma with intent, which is the physics of clairvoyance. So clairvoyance should be a lot more respectable now that we understand the physics, my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I agree, absolutely. And people should strive to enable that, really, not escape it and not shut it off like we've been programmed as a human collective to, right? We're programmed to fear these abilities and not,
Yes, because in fact, they're the way we get a soul. And the brainwave cascade that triggers clairvoyance is phase conjugate implosive centripetal, and it's totally understandable, the physics of what triggers clairvoyance, the same as the physics that triggers the kids who see without their eyes, who, by the way, almost invariably start seeing their dead grandmothers, and their parents freak out. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And so this is why all of the ancient symbols are always anthropomorphic, and they always have animal symbolism in them, whether it's ancient Egypt or the ancient Mayan or the, the native, the indigenous people of North America, or all the indigenous people. I don't want to forget any of them, but all of these religions are embedded within the animal, right? The anthropomorphic symbol, because these are our ancient ancestors. And I really want to point that
Even
out.
Thoth, Return of the Bird Tribes, Thoth, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. That's the point. Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole idea about the reptilian and the mammalian brain. So you must understand that this has context within like let's say ancient Egyptian mythology, where it's not mythology, it's actual, for me, it's fact. It has to do with the mammalian, the reptilian. When you see a cobra, that's the reptilian brain. And when you see the vulture, um, that has to do with the neocortex, or it has to do with the
The bird
ability,
brain.
yeah, the bird brain, the
And the,
ability
and the
to
snake, Uraeus snake from the face, that's the Kundalini. That's the reptilian
Kundalini
brainstem feeding the
rising.
bird brain. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then you have the ram, which is a very important, that's more the ram, or the horned, exactly, the horns, the horned ram. And so
And
as
the
human,
ventricle horns literally crystallize, and we know the physics actually, and why Lucifer and Moses had horns. It's empowered Kundalini. Literally, the ventricle horns unfold,
yeah,
crystallize. It's the phonon's coherence.
yeah. So they have been shown in one shamanic journey how the ancient Egyptian lineage, as the female line of the ancient Egyptians, it started to morph into a ram. So I saw this grandmother of the ancient Egyptian woman, who's a big grandmother in the human lineage, and she morphed into a ram, and from the ram it morphed into a snake. So this is the human, mammalian, reptilian understanding. So in our DNA, in the advancement evolution of DNA, and I'm not saying scientific fact, I'm just saying what I've received through my own personal experiences, and you're welcome to just, intuit based on that, is very much rooted. These are not symbols, but it has to do with our genetic evolution, has to do with how life traveled through the ages and the aeons until it reached and became a human in its form. Has to do with remembering our ancestors.
Mm.
So when we see a sheep or a ram, we must remember that this is pure life force energy in the form of a ram that is an ancestor, as well as the snake. These are our ancestors. So these why these animals, they all represent something, as well as the scorpion. So
Yeah. And it's a classic that when the zygote turns into a fetus, for a while it looks just like a tadpole. I mean, it's becoming a frog, literally, ontology recapitulating phylogeny. And Anton Parks was sure that at that phase, Enki looked like a frog. Well,
yeah.
yeah.
As well as the Ogdoads, the eight ancient ones in ancient Egyptian religion. There are the eight beings that were snakes and frogs, and
Mhm.
these are the primal creators.
Mhm.
Uh, so this is what I wanted to preface talking about the spider being, because I don't want it to sound like a comic story. I want people to have reverence for these beings and to understand that they have a role. And we see the representations like this big, but there is a higher dimensional being that is much bigger than what you might imagine. And they have influence because these are sacred beings and presences. So what I was shown is this spider being leading a swarm of grasshoppers and insectoids. This is what's behind this black goo distortion. And it sounds, that the preying on the souls of the humans. And like you can imagine the spider web, it creates a web and it wants to just catch a prey in its web. And that's how it feeds, right? Does that make it bad? It does not make it bad. It makes it alive. And we cannot demonize predators because they have a role and they have a function. And so they're responsible, these entities, the insectoids and the spider being. The spider being also exists in native understanding as the spider woman in the indigenous, the North American indigenous tribes, Navajo, Hopi, and etc. I'm not a big expert on the subject, but I do know that the spider being is well known all over the world, even in West African tribes. This is a very important being. And I personally, in my journey, I used to think of her as evil, because how could you feed on the souls of little children, and how could you, like, But when you understand the function of a predator, then you stop demonizing it, because everything, like we said, has a function. In that regards, the spider being and the insectoids are behind the distortion of souls, the decay of souls, and the preying on the soul of humans. The spider being is connected to the spider web and the World Wide Web. And so the technology of a spider being is interconnectivity. And this is what created the technology that you and I can speak through right now. And that is information technology, computers, the internet, social media, so on and so forth.
I mean, not to interrupt, but all I can think of is I used to go through these beautiful little Italian towns, speaking in Torino several times a year. And then within months, when the Italian government made the official decision to hide all the 3G, 4G, 5G Wi-Fi towers in the churches and in the schools and hide them, you could tell you went into those villages and the twinkle was out of everyone's eyes. And I was pissed.
Mm-hmm.
But you're telling me
Yeah, so there's, yeah, there is a way of looking at this in the way that its function is. So I just wanted to connect the ideas of like how this is connected to our technology, our modern technology, and also the AI. The AI algorithm is connected to the spider being, and the way the hive mind, because it's a spider being and a soldier and an army of insectoids, it has hive mind mentality. And so this is very much intertwined with AI technology, but also if you look at these tech companies, you will see people are more like robots. They're highly functional robots. And essentially, this may be a far-reaching statement, but when you look at capitalism and its idea of progress, it's about making a human, turning it into a machine, essentially.
yeah,
Just on a very basic level of understanding, like the kindergarten level, because we
of
don't
course.
need to go into this in detail.
Until
Essentially,
they know what a soul is, they're in trouble.
yeah. So the whole thing with 9 to 5, you have a job, you have kids, everything is programmed and everything is you have everything is pre-programmed, and your life is pretty much pre-programmed, and you're a worker in the factory, and you're functional because you're able to serve the hive mind of the company or the corporation. You're in a hierarchy of some sort. You're not necessarily living your life from spirit or from soul. You're not necessarily free because your life requirements are so, the financial requirements and the obligations do not allow you to be free and to make choices based on from soul.
Yeah,
And this is the struggle
dehumanizing.
we all have to go through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, did you say something?
I'm sorry. I just said like dehumanizing as in soul removing. Sorry, exactly. Yes, go ahead.
Mhm.
So the solution is to see the
We're
happy.
not there yet. We need to understand the function of these beings,
Yeah.
because they sound like predators that are after human souls. Okay, why are they created? I was told that they're an army of God. They're sacred. They serve a function. Their function is to help the creator God to decide whether the experiment is successful or whether it needs a reset.
Hmm.
So let's say you introduce a virus to a healthy cell, and depending on if the healthy cell fights off this virus, means it has strong immunity and it can grow, or it will get overtaken by the virus, and then you know that this is not a healthy cell. Something like that.
It's like why the deer need the wolves.
Yeah, that too. So the creator God, and you know, when I started experiencing my creator God, he was a scientist. He was a genetic engineer, and I met him in his lab. And so I know this sounds again sci-fi, because you think of God as this unknowable being, but as we talked about, there are levels to divinity, and there's the unknowable supreme God that we don't know enough about, but we can witness the signs of his or her creations everywhere, and have that very abstract spiritual connection to this abstract poetic God that is not personalized. And all Abrahamic religions have successfully achieved that for the human collective. We were able to connect with an abstract concept of what God is on a spiritual level.
And Elena says that all the advanced galactic civilizations all believe in what she calls source is perfectly parallel. Yes, so which means the collective hologram has intent, which is a beautiful thing. But then
But then
Dalia,
there are the other dimensional gods. So to get to the unknowable infinite gods, you have layers of dimensions and advanced beings. And so when I talk to what I call God, it's my creator, as in the genetic engineer that created me, the scientist.
Enki, Thoth.
Enki, yeah.
So she
So
had a conversation with Enki, believe it or not. I think
yes,
it's cool.
I did. And he was a very pleasant guy, and he looked, like I said, like a 20-year-old scientist. He was
Had
young
glasses.
in some way. Yeah, I do remember he had some kind. My mind interpreted him as being a scientist with glasses, even if he doesn't need it, but the human mind will see things in an approximated way so that it makes sense. So what I've been told by Horus, which is my soul, as the space traveler, he showed me that this is the army of the creator God, and it's meant to help the creator God decide whether the experiment is successful or not, whether it needs a reset. So by this measure, these predatory entities, the spider beings and the insectoids, they have a function, which is to sort of swarm or try to hover around the soul. And if the person lets them in and gives their soul away, right? Because, some people actually do not want soul, because some people want to be told what to do. Some people actually want to be part of a hive mind,
Mm-hmm.
believe it or not.
It is a privilege to be assimilated.
Yeah. In that sense, some people give themselves, we have this saying like, he sold his soul to the devil.
Yeah.
This is a form of that. It's basically you're giving your soul away for the hive mind mentality, and you become a cog in the machine,
Yeah.
which is okay. It's still a sacred way of being, but you're not a star. You are not an individual who has consciousness that is part of a star system. Then you become part of another being or hybrid being that has the hive mentality,
Mm-hmm.
or hive mind, and you can still exist in that existence as part of a hive mind. And so a lot of the people who work in tech, they think and function like that. I'm not overgeneralizing, of course, because I used to work in tech too, but I no longer work in tech. So I'm not generalizing anything. I'm just saying as an example.
And there's
So
some cultures that tend more in that direction. You could say the Japanese, for example, they're very tending toward a hive mind, or the Germans who accepted Hitler, for example. I mean, we could.
right. But you could still be part of a god mind. Like you could be serving a god entity, whether it doesn't have not necessarily the spider being, which is all about the AI algorithm. You could still be serving another type of entity that's not necessarily the spider being, you know? So, but the spider being is very much about the technological advancement and the AI and the artificial intelligence. And I've seen because you can see them on different levels. And yeah, I don't know if it's relevant, but because I am a space navigator and I have a team, as Nengish Zira, like the man on the spaceship,
Both.
yeah, which is Thoth, he has a team and they do like star warfare. And these are the types of entities that we fight. The robotic or eight-legged robots, essentially. And they tend to sometimes take on people who have soul, and they become robotic. I've seen it transform with a team member of mine that was what's the term, like there's a word for it, like he's been when there's like somebody who just started working for the other side, So there's a word for it that I'm not remembering right
It's
now.
like Luke Skywalker's relationship with his father. He woke up and find out dad is half machine. Also, Muad'Dib and Dune, same story.
Yeah. I
And
haven't seen
just
Star
just to
Wars.
say,
Funny enough. Yeah.
even the
Mhm.
Hopi knew that the insectoids were etheric surgeons, very advanced, but
So they're very advanced, but there's in that way, yeah, they take on the souls and then they become soulless. They're very intelligent, and this is why us as humans can learn from their algorithm, and this is why we have technology that really can help connect us. But when it becomes devoid of soul, then it becomes anti what it's meant to do, just like social media. It's meant to connect people, but then ends up disconnecting them and disconnecting them from their own souls. And this is the danger, essentially. But now we understand the function of these AI, the higher dimensional entities that are behind this technology. They're animating these types of technologies that are meant to really put people to the test, essentially. And it depends if you are soulful and if you can maintain your soul in the face of these predators, really. And I'm saying predators, they're sacred and they have a function. So I'm not demonizing them. They have a function and it's meant to challenge you. Um, but some people will stand
yeah.
in the face of that and preserve their soul, and some will give their souls away. And most people are in between. So they're half, they still have soul, but part of them is taken over by some kind of entity or leeching. So this is what we're talking about here.
So in order to keep your soul, you have to prove you want to, basically, which means you might have to take conscious action to keep your soul in the face of, like surrounded by 5G and electrosmog and Wi-Fi, everything that's taking the souls of our kids, we're surrounded by that. And we have to prove we made a different choice. Otherwise, actually, it has to be an active, not a passive choice in that sense.
I
So,
just need to get my notebook just a second because I need to mention some points. Just one second.
so there, hopefully there is a happily ever after here. Again, it's not about shooting the parasite. I think our humorous subtitles when we started have been vindicated.
I just want to clarify some things because I heard some people talk about it, and there's just some misgivings or misunderstandings about their nature. So some people said it's a AI to destroy ecospheres, the goo.
That's the
And
black goo. That's what Johann Fritz said that. Yeah. Yes.
essentially they are essentially destroying the ecosphere of the earth, essentially, by taking over the humans, and but also not just the humans, but and to reset planets. I
Yeah.
mean, exactly, this is the whole algorithm that gets to decide whether this planet is going to be reset or not. So this is correct. The other thing is, I think it was Johann Fritz that was saying these things, and he said that they're service to self, and I want to say that this is not correct. These are not service to self. This is an army of God. And it was created by the creator. And they're serving a function for the creator to estimate the validity of the experiment or to estimate the health of the experiment.
Mm.
So I wrote it's a predator, but it's not service to self. It is an army of God, soldiers of God. What else did I write here?
I mean, somehow that might not be very consoling to some people who have been exposed to black goo. But on the other hand, if you see the big picture,
The thing is, people just often mix things up. They think that this is part of this black cabal and this dark evil force that's trying to overtake humans. Actually, when you think of the black cabal, it really is really corrupt humans that have lost their souls. That I talked about, the priesthood, the dark magicians, with the ritual sacrifices and all of these things, they're essentially feeding human-made demonic entities created by humans. So, we want to clarify, not to bring in the gods in this. This is made by humans. A lot of these dark entities and these dark elite groups are made by humans, and they're in a swarm of their own, lost their souls, and then they serve a hierarchy of sorts that they have created for themselves. So it's not the doing of the gods. So let's it's not all the doing of the gods. It's the people need to take responsibility also of their part in this, especially when they give their souls away to some higher, what they think is a higher force or some higher demonic entity. It's actually a lower astral entity that you just gave your power to. So, oh, you want to give me your power and have me enslave you? Sure, yeah, why not? You know, I could play that role for you.
Yeah.
So,
So there's a lot of ways to say that it's all done with mirrors, see the bigger picture. It reminds me in the film They Live, when there's these special kind of glasses, and my friend Michael Helias says Kodak had those glasses where you could see who no longer had an aura. Therefore, you suddenly began able to see all around you who are the soulless ones, called They Live, the film. And the equivalent of having those kind of glasses, the clairvoyance that sees who still has an aura, is a powerful tool here.
mhm. Yeah, and I think people speak about like how these beings or these cabal or whatever, they want to enslave humanity. Actually, they do not want to enslave per se, because what makes you a slave? It's an inability to retain ancestral memory and being unembeddable, like you're not able to embed in your higher array.
Wow. Every Aboriginal would applaud when you said that. Their only definition of God was access to ancestral memory. And their only definition of did you do something useful today is if you heard your ancestors and did what they told you. So it fits perfectly.
Yeah, yeah.
Well said.
Thank you. You know, and the most beautiful thing about the people who speak about the blue goo and the AI entities, and like I said, it's not 100% correct, at least from my perspective, everything they share, but they agree on one thing: to return to your connection to God, will basically to save your soul, right? That's what they keep on saying. Let's be in heart-centered living. And this is a message that we can all unify on. It has no question. But what I want to, there is no question around it. I mean, what I want to point towards though, it is if the human is confused in terms of like if things are not matching up, like if I tell you the story of a dark alien force that's going after humanity, right? That's meant to enslave humanity. This is the narrative. I'm not saying that. This is the narrative that a lot of people
Yes,
in
exactly.
I don't know, the ET community or in the healing community, they say that is the narrative they're saying. I want to say that that does not help, because you cannot say that and then go on saying, well, now you're going to be in love and empathy and love everyone. Well, you just gave me a monster that working outside of my room, but then you tell me to be in love and empathy? Well, that doesn't work. How can you ask me to be in love and empathy after you just, warned me about a grave danger that's lurking? So if you, it doesn't make sense. The message is in that way confused.
Yes, where you really take on inertia or power when you can be the empath that sees the bigger picture where all of it is love, in fact, and that this bigger picture, you needed this parasite. So maybe should we ask Elena, maybe the Dracos aren't really the bad guy. Or, there's a
Maybe,
lot of ways to look at
maybe
it.
they're not really the bad guys after all.
Maybe we should tell Johann Fritz that. Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
maybe you're misunderstanding something, but
Yeah.
that's the problem of the messaging, and this is why we're in deep trouble,
Mm.
because even the messaging is unclear, and the problem is it's self-conflicting. It conflicts itself, and this is why the narrative that I'm sharing, based on what has been given to me by a higher galactic energy, um which is Horus, who's a space traveler, who is my soul and my true identity. And was able to show me things from his perspective. And it's not what humans think it is. It is not some dark aliens that are trying to enslave humanity. No. This, like we said, it serves a function of a kind of a test. Um,
Yeah, kind of a test.
it is a test, absolutely.
Hmm.
So what I want to say is it's as easy because these entities, they are sacred and they have consciousness. They're not out there to destroy you. They will loom around your soul and see if you give in to temptation and see if you want to give it away. Nothing is really taken by force in that way. So essentially, if you are in soul-centered being, these entities will crawl out of your reality entirely. Like
If you have
you're
enough bliss,
programmed.
you feel the big picture
If you have enough bliss and you understand the value of your soul, that
and
you are,
love them too.
and you are in love, they will go away. It's as easy as not, it's not a fight. There is no fight. They will
Yeah.
just swarm away. They will fly away. They will go away, really, because it's not a war. There's no battle. The battle is actually within your soul. Are you strong enough in your soul understanding to protect your own soul and to honor your soul and, and your own divinity in a way, as we're all connected to divine creation? Or are you going to give it away and
Mm.
sell it for some materialistic temptation or some promise, false promise, or trickery?
Yes. It reminds me of when multidimensional cellular healing, they used to teach, well, it's not about kicking out the astral parasites from the aura. When the bad guy inhabiting someone's body is doing muscle twitching, they're talking to the inhabiting spirits, and I called it ghost busting. And they said, no, 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 it's not ghost busting. The last question the entity asks the shaman was, who am I? And when the shaman answered, you are the twinkle in my eye, that is the moment when the bad guy, when the astral parasite said, "Oh, oh, great, I'm out of here, wonderful."
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But I did have just a little question for you. So then, in Elena's latest, she's saying that after the Greys, hive mind was dissolved by the Galactic Federation, and the Greys had planned nasty things, and they had about many millions of humanoid hybrids with the Greys on these ships on the other side of the galaxy, which they stored to take over the Earth. And now the Federation finally gets to these literally millions of humanoid gray hybrids stored on these ships. And then the Federation gets there to try to save them and finds out that's messy because the humanoid gray hybrids are literally electrically soulless. So now they have this quandary. What do they do? Here we have millions of soulless humanoids in this fleet of ships left behind by the Greys. It's like this is a big picture.
Well, what I don't know about the gray specifically, but this can go for the humans who suffer from the same thing as well. It will be the same advice. Soulful beings can teach them how to have soul. Like, uh, consider them a junior in the academy, kindergarten level, and start to show them what it is like to have soul and to have empathy
Yeah.
and love for others. And what does that feel like in your body when you do something kind to another person and then you allow yourself to receive kindness in return at another time, at another day? And that is how you teach people to have soul on a very fundamental level. And we come back to the pure principle of what these religions were teaching and what Jesus was teaching and what Buddha is teaching. And we just come back to the pure principle.
That's beautiful. And of course, in that case, they're not in an environment where they have access to bliss or nature, but potentially the natural condition would be that 2/3 of the planet Earth, who apparently are now soulless, your advice applies beautifully, I think. So, hello, there's still hope. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, I want to see if I have more notes regarding this. Okay.
Maybe we could just say in the interim here that what we're planning is a feedback group, a conversation group, what might be the Telegram from Soul or Telegram from Source on Telegram, which would be where we can have these dialogues with Dahlia and others to pursue these conversations. And eventually we create a support mechanism for Dahlia and people like her where people can contribute, and we're looking to that as well. So these are cooking. And then we'll all keep this linked at physicsofsoul.com where we have all these films already in the links.
Yeah, and I want to say that I received many emails from many people and really beautiful emails and stories. And a lot of people also ask me how they can be of help and how they can be of service. And just, I had the inspiration to share that I personally need assistance because I'm receiving images, revelations, and symbols every day. And for me, it's a little hard to keep up with, like, keep track of and be able to document things and visualize things, because I can see images clearly in my third eye, but I'm not a graphic designer or, or an illustrator that can actually put it in a, shareable form. So what I want to say is I am open to receive assistance. If you have, um, visual arts skills or graphic design skills, or could even help me with writing, because I want to start a blog to document everything that I have received in a clear timeline, because essentially I want this information to be shared with everyone, especially they're essentially giving me the foundations of a new pathway. I call it a pathway. It used to be called in the past a religion, but what it is, it really is a pathway to a star, a
Hmm.
star that I want to talk about in details, but it will require some like work in the background with visualization and assembling some photos together and doing a presentation so that I'm able to share this information, because essentially it's a way of salvation. I
Yeah.
know that word that is being
It's
used.
not cliche, but it's true. It's actually the science of, and if you're not a sun god, you're boring. We knew that a long time, but now we know the physics of what it is to inhabit a star. Hello.
Mhm. And
And
so, yeah,
so,
my the galactic messenger, that is Horus archetype, the who I am, because he is a space traveler. And through his incarnation in a physical body, in my body, we carved a pathway to a star. And um what we want to be able to create one day is to create a temple in Sinai, not just in Sinai, but where I received the visions for the stars, where I was in Sinai. And it's really the end of human suffering in the way that I experienced it, that place where you are able to access the star energy. And I want to talk about that in detail.
yes.
Uh, yeah, and that's
And
why I'm extending the invitation, if somebody who feels empathetic towards the work that we're doing, me and Dan, and the messages that we're relaying, because I do need someone with empathy towards the message as
the help.
well. Yeah.
Beautiful. And the physics of temple as bliss temple and how that can propel you into embedding in the sun god. We're all about that. The ultimate physics of temple. We've been on that case for 30 years. We can tell that story. It's gorgeous. And oh, by the way, Dahlia, do we want to thank that feedback we got from the last film where the guy says, oh, well, he really thinks it's perfect that Dahlia is interviewing Dan because Dan is a perfect guy too, da, da, da. But then he says, and I researched the ancient statues of Thoth, and I decided that Dahlia was the spitting image
Oh, of Hermes. I think he
of her.
mentioned Hermes.
I
Yeah,
thought that was so cool.
I
Is it
thought so
is
too.
it the hairdo? Don't tell me what it is.
Maybe it's the hair. I don't know, but it definitely made me giggle. So so thank you. I've been really enjoying reading the emails and just sharing the heart expression, the soul expression of some of the messages I received is just beautiful and very soul nurturing. So thank you so much for listening and for sharing.
I really wish my hair was curly, but anyway, I'm sorry.
Sometimes I wish my hair was straight because it's not such a bother to take care of, you know. So
And so that, guys, is the happily ever after for now. More to come. But
mhm.
was there anything else you wanted to say today, Dahlia? Let me, did
I
we do
think
okay?
I think for today is it's really good, but it's just something that my soul told me about who I am, and it comes to me in waves. And on my birthday, it spoke to me and told me, I am here, I am here, I am here. أنا المسيح, أنا المسيح, أنا المسيح. And it speaks to me in Arabic and English, so I just wanted to share that.
The actual voice and language of her soul. And should we admire Dahlia for being brave enough to share that inner voice directly? Ooh, is that courage? Hello, I think it's cool. So thank you, Dahlia. More to come on this. Blessings. We did have fun. I told you it was going to be fun.
Yes, it is really fun. Thank you, Dan.
Blessings.
And blessings.
See you all soon. Bye.